For the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine, an American president will meet directly with the man responsible for that decision, Vladimir Putin. We don't know when exactly, the Kremlin says in the coming days, but we did learn of one possible location from Putin himself, who's floating the prospect of the United Arab Emirates. Putin also didn't rule out direct talks with Ukrainian President Zelensky, an idea reportedly suggested by the Trump administration. But he said that won't happen until certain conditions are met. Still, the administration sees that as progress.
I think for the first time, perhaps since this administration began, we have some concrete examples of the kinds of things that Russia would ask for in order to end the war. We haven't had much of that to this point. Obviously, the Ukrainians have a say in this. We got to bring the two sides and the two positions close enough so that, the ultimate closer, President Trump, can get involved and make it happen.
Well, the big question now, has Putin met any conditions to get this high-profile diplomatic opportunity after years of war and international isolation? NBC's Monica Alba covers the White House for us. Michael McFaul is former U.S. ambassador to Russia and MSNBC international affairs analyst. So, Monica, what do we actually know about how President Trump is approaching this potential summit?
Well, we know that this was discussed yesterday when his own envoy, Steve Witkoff, met with Putin for more than 3 hours in Moscow yesterday. He came back, gave the president a readout, and in effect, the president said, yes, I am open to meeting with President Putin in the coming days, but I would also like for President Putin to commit to meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. And ideally, from the U.S. perspective, they would like to have a trilateral meeting of sorts where the three leaders could come together, and the president, who's been talking for months about trying to bring them both to the table for some potential peace talks, is really pushing for that angle. So it's unclear, Chris, if President Putin will commit to that or if he's even open to that. He sort of said it was something that was raised, but that he wasn't in the moment going to say that he was definitely going to do that. But this is coming from President Trump, who wants to try to be a deal maker here. He says that he's been doing that for other conflicts. Of course, this conflict has been quite intractable in terms of its length and the scale of lives that have been lost after Russia invaded Ukraine. But the president is open to some kind of a meeting here. So he is trying to diplomatically and behind the scenes have conversations to see if a summit can be set up. Questions of where this would happen are still unknown. There are a couple of places that have offered to host these kinds of talks. We know that Turkey, for instance, had been mentioned as a possible venue, with President Erdogan suggesting that. We know the Vatican had even mentioned that at one point. There are questions about where President Putin could safely travel to for his own concern in part. So that's a dynamic. But timing-wise, Chris, we're told this could coalesce in the next week or two. You know better than anybody how difficult these summits are to pull off when we're not talking about Presidents Putin, Trump, and Zelensky. But when you add all of that to the mix, it is a very challenging bar to overcome and to meet. But the White House is working diligently to see if it's possible.
Yeah, these things are generally planned a lot more in advance. Thank you for that, Monica. Well, Ambassador, look, Russia's a pariah, at least in the West. Putin has an arrest warrant out for war crimes against him. So what does it mean for him to get to meet with an American president, considering he's shown no, at least publicly, no appetite for compromise?
It would be a fantastic victory for him, of course, to stand next to the president of the United States, the leader of the democratic world, and have to give nothing in return for that meeting. That is a giant plus for Putin. And therefore, I think President Trump and his administration need to think about what are the minimal things that they want to get out of a summit meeting in return for this big gift. Usually I've actually planned presidential summits before when I worked at the White House for President Obama. The usual way that summits occur is at the end of big negotiations. It's to close big sets of negotiations, and you use the meeting as a mechanism to force events, to force sides to agree. What makes me nervous about this is that we're getting the president of the United States involved before any details have been revealed or negotiated. And most certainly, and thankfully, Secretary Rubio noted that, it has to be a trilateral meeting. I think it would be a giant mistake for President Trump to meet with Putin and not have as part of that some kind of meeting with President Zelensky as well.
Yeah, and I want to get to that, but to the point of who should get what out of this, right? And we don't know exactly if anything was agreed to in the meeting between Putin and Trump's special envoy yesterday. Rubio called it productive. But the Kremlin has been pretty clear, Ambassador, about what it wants. It wants a guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO and recognition of the territory that Russia illegally annexed. But is that what it's going to take to stop this war?
Well, you're absolutely right. There's zero evidence that Putin has changed any of his positions from the day that he invaded Ukraine. Maybe they did in the Witkoff meeting. Of course, we don't have a readout of that. But I listened very closely to Putin's foreign policy advisor, Yuri Ushakov. I used to deal with him when I was ambassador. And the way he framed it is that Witkoff came with concessions. He said, we got positive signals from Trump. He didn't mention anything that Putin sent back. And you're absolutely right to underscore the conditions that he wants for the end of the war is complete annexation of those 4 territories that he invaded in 2022. And I want to remind everybody that the Russian army does not control all of that territory yet. He's actually called for Ukraine to withdraw from their own country as a term, as a condition for a peace deal. So maybe he's come off of that position, but publicly we have no evidence yet that he's changed his view on that.
Can we talk about Russia's financial situation? They are clearly under growing financial pressure. The Russia Central Bank projects the country will have 0 economic growth by the end of this year. Back in October, I think the interest rate was at its highest level since 1991. And then in an effort to tame inflation caused in part by the surge in military spending, we see that. Tomorrow, the U.S. is supposed to apply, or said they would apply, a new set of sanctions, although it's not entirely clear, I don't think, if that's happening. Does any of that impact the equation that's going on with Vladimir Putin, you who have dealt with him and has an idea about what financial pressure means to him?
I do think it has an impact, and I wish we would have a much more comprehensive, smart sanctions regime to increase the pressure. I actually do not think our best move is to put tariffs on Indian goods, which then requires those companies to put pressure on Modi, and then Modi puts pressure on Trump, on Putin. I just think there's so much easier ways to do it. And let me tell you, too, let's sanction the entire shadow fleet that the Russian government uses to export its oil right now. That's a much more strategic and direct hit on the Russians. And let's seize the Russian central bank assets that are sitting here in the United States. You want to get Putin's attention. Those are 2 very direct things that Trump could do instead. But having said that, I want to underscore, you're right. The economy is under pressure. Banks are overextended. They're even talking about reducing military spending in the next budget. And Russia is. Think about that. Reducing military spending during a time of war suggests that you have real economic problems at home.
So back to Zelensky. We know Trump briefed some key European leaders on the summit. Zelensky clearly working the phones. Reports are he's been talking to the leaders of Germany, France, Italy today. And in his description of those conversations, he repeatedly emphasized that Ukraine's fate is directly tied to Europe. And, quote, therefore, Europe must be a participant in ending the war. But, of course, they won't be at the table either. Is it a trilateral meeting? What role, if any, does Europe play in this? What are the risks and maybe potential benefits of Trump trying to go this alone?
Well, if there's actually a summit meeting next week, that means that's going to be a meeting without preparation, right? Normally,
can I just ask you, and I want you to finish that answer, but just the tone of your voice, are you skeptical this will ever happen?
I don't know. I've heard of other things before. This is going to happen. Maybe we'll see what happens. I think it's too early to book any flight reservations just yet. But I want to be sincere. I hope it happens. I applaud the president for trying to end this horrific, barbaric war. I just want to underscore that it's going to be complicated to do that. It's not going to happen in a summit with Putin in a 2-day summit. Usually, you have the preparatory work done before you bring in the president of the United States. There's been no preparatory work done so far. Mr. Witkoff flying to Moscow and having a 3-hour meeting, that is not a negotiation. And I would prefer it to be the other way around, but maybe this jumpstarts it, and then that other process happens. And most certainly, Ukraine has to be part of it, and most certainly the Europeans have to be part of a comprehensive solution. And my sense, talking to people in Kiev, their fear is that President Trump will wing it without knowing a lot of the details. He'll be convinced by Putin, and that will then lock them into a position that is not tenable for their own national security interests, and by the way, may not be tenable for Zelensky's own political interests. It's not as if he's not a dictator. He's a democratically elected leader, and so he just can't accept some terms that Trump negotiated without support within Ukrainian society.
Ambassador Michael McFaul, as always, your knowledge of this situation is invaluable. Thank you for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.